Hey, yeah, what's up? This disciple Marcella Occurrence Rain back up in this anti-Illuminati, anti-telepathy all day. Everybody with him. Amen. So, this message is going to be about Trade Center 7. And I'm going to be making more videos for Trade Center 7. It's going to be Trade Center 7. Yeah. Get your mind ready to marinate and think about, get your mind ready and prep for what we're about to talk about. We're about to talk about Trade Center 7. Trade Center 7. Now we know on 9/11. This is all from common sense, logical point of view, starting off. Just common sense, logistics of life, you know, the science of life. This is how we're going to start this off. One plane hit one of the towers early in the morning, 9/11, 2001. Not too much longer, another plane hits the other tower. Okay? So, this is why they say the planes fell. It's because of the two planes that went into the buildings. Although the buildings are super huge, this is how they say they fell. Then you got Trade Center 7. No plane hit it. No plane came in contact with it. No bombs. No nothing. But it fell less than 20 seconds straight down in its print. Meaning straight down in its foundation. The foundation up under the building. The building didn't topple over to one side or the other. It fell straight down less than a minute. Okay? Now, how does a building, you know how huge the trade centers are? How does a building fall without any plane hitting it? This is Trade Center 7. No plane hit it. And it fell straight down. Now, you don't even have to know about demolition. You don't have to know about how buildings fall and deteriorate over time or none of that. Common sense would tell you that if a building is naturally falling, naturally, then it's going to deteriorate as it falls. It's not just going to fall straight down in a cartoon fashion. It's going to fall, it's going to crumble a little bit. Some of it's going to come off, and then some of it's going to kind of come down a little bit, and then the weight of the building somehow just the weight would get, some of the debris would get stuck, and then it'll come down further and further. That to me seems natural. Not just all of it just coming down without any hindrance. That's the main argument I have. Why wasn't there any hindrance whatsoever when you look at this building, just naturally looking at it fall? Why wasn't there naturally some type of little hindrance with all that debris? Because remember, all that debris is going to come down, and at some point it's going to get clunked up and stuck up. How come that didn't never happen with a building that didn't have any planes in it? We're just talking about Trade Center 7. Because a lot of y'all know about Trade Center. Of course, what happened on 9/11, Trade Center 1 and 2. But a lot of y'all didn't even know they had numbers on the trade centers. Especially y'all that's not from New York. Y'all didn't even know that. Trade Center 7, a lot of people don't even know that fell on 9/11. A lot of people don't know that. Everybody don't know that. Trade Center 7 fell, as well as the Trade Center 1 and 2, which was said that it fell by, like I said, planes. But a lot of y'all guys don't know that this fell by with nothing hitting it. So they said it was because of fires. Okay, how did fires get started? How would fire pull down all the one building just straight down? Remind you, this building is so big that whatever is deteriorating, the building up under it has the power to hold the deterioration from the fire. Let me say that again. If fire started the fall for Trade Center 7 made the building go down like it did in less than 20 seconds. How is that possible when, as big as the building is, the fires, all the deterioration from the fire per se, quote unquote fire, all of the deterioration that came from the fire destroying the building, all of that deterioration and debris, all of that debris and mass and all of that could have still been held up because of the strength of the foundation, the levels that's under it. It wouldn't have just made a couple floors wouldn't have made, in other words, wouldn't have made the whole building just fall in under itself. If the fires burned up a couple floors, all of that deterioration would have burned the ceilings, burned the floors, and they would have collapsed. And then all of that debris would have just sat on top of the floors up under it. The debris and all of that collapsing in on itself, the floors busting in on itself, all of that just would have went to tenths of floors that was under it. And that's not just going to fall from fire and debris in a couple floors. In the foundation of those floors and the ceilings of those floors, it's not heavy enough, in other words, to make it all come down. That's just common sense. And that shows you how much America trusts the government. Some of y'all don't even know Trade Center 7 fell. Every time they talk about 9/11, they always sidestepping Trade Center 7. You notice that? Oh, they don't have no problem. They don't have no problem telling you about 9/11. Because they have, the Trade Center 1 and 2, they don't have no problem with telling you about that. They have a problem with you thinking about Trade Center 7 when there was no plane that hit it. And it fell just like the other two buildings. It fell just like the other two buildings. Explain that. It fell the same way, nothing different. This is the real world. How does it fall the same fashion naturally or in reality or in real time, the same way the other buildings fell in real time and they had planes hit it and it's no difference? That isn't even correct in real time because there was a different reason. There was a different cause and effect situation. The cause and effect situation was different. The cause was with the first, I'm just go by what they say. Because I'm not going through that on this video. Even though I know that's nothing either. That's a lie too. Trade Center 1 and 2. But the cause and effect was for Trade Center 1 and 2, supposedly planes hitting it. So, and the cause and effect for Trade Center 7 was the fire, and then it just imploded on itself. Okay, that was the effect. It just the fire came. They say they had fires on floors. I also heard that the Trade Center 7 there was nobody even in there. So how did fires even get started? I heard it was evacuated. That's what I heard. Nevertheless, they didn't describe and tell, they didn't tell you, how did the fires get started? And how does it fall after the cause and effect is different from Trade Center 1 and 2? How does it fall the same way in fashion when in real time they didn't have the same cause that affected it? It wasn't affected by the same thing. Two were affected by planes. One was affected by fire. So how did they all fall together the same way? How? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense in real time reality is what I'm showing you. That building had fires, Trade Center 7. If fires had started on the floor, on a couple floors, like I told you, the debris, just go through it in your mind while I'm saying it. The fire starts in Trade Center 7. I mean, this is a huge skyscraper type building. This ain't no downtown town hall type building. This is a skyscraper. It's scraping the sky, in other words. So the building burning. Now the floor is deteriorating down and everything, and it implodes on itself. Being that it's a Trade Center 7, a Trade Center building, a skyscraper building, that even took time for the floors to deteriorate from the fire. That even took time. That ain't like no old, Southern home from the 1800s. That even took time for it to deteriorate. Naturally speaking, it would take time. So, the floor burns up. Everything starts to burn. It deteriorates. Let's just say it happened like that. It deteriorates. It falls. The ceiling falls. The walls start to fall. All of it is just going to become debris that just falls on the floors below it. That's what's going to happen naturally. It's not going to fly to the left, fly to the right. The debris is not going to do any of that. The debris is going to go downward. And the further downward it goes, the less possibility of it starting another fire on the other floors. It may have started a fire directly under the floor that it was under. It may have started a fire directly under that, but then that took time. So I would say about 2 or 3 floors under that, the initial floors, that's how far it could have went. So basically 5 floors. How do 5 to 6, I would even say, I'll be generous and say 7 floors. How does even 7 floors worth of debris make a whole iron structure? This ain't no wood. Iron structure, all of that, a skyscraper building falls from floors, fires on 7 floors. Y'all need to go look at skyscraper buildings. What I want you to do, I'm gonna give you some homework. Go look at Trade Center 7, and you're gonna be like, wow, this is a huge building. So even 7 floors, you're going to look at it and say, without a doubt, there's no way 7 floors could have made the whole building fall. It's no way. So, what happened? The demolition came in and I believe set bombs on enough floors to make it implode down in 20 seconds. Less than a minute. They put bombs on it because it's the only thing that could have made that come down that quickly. And otherwise, in the real scenarios of a fire, what we would have been watching was people standing in New York watching a building deteriorate from fire. That's what we would have been watching. That's what we would have been watching. Everybody would just been sitting there watching the building burn and deteriorate until it just totally just kept falling down. And then all of it wouldn't have fell down. Have y'all ever seen houses in the hood that got burned up by fire? The whole building didn't even burn. Y'all have seen plenty buildings and apartments and townhouses, what y'all call brownstones up here, all throughout different places in the country. Buildings even like that don't burn to the ground just because there was a fire. And even if it is a fire on the whole floor, the bottom falls out and it does not make the whole roof and everything fall. In order for that whole thing to fall like it did, it wouldn't have fell perfectly because the fire was probably not at the top of the Trade Center 7. So that means when the floors that were burning just fell in on itself, there was some at the top. There was obviously building at the top. And from that deterioration and just natural deteriorating away by the fire, it would have toppled over and fell over in pieces in different ways. It would have fell over a little bit. It wouldn't have fell naturally because the fire, the building itself would have just been falling unevenly according to where the deterioration is at. The deterioration would have made it where some of the foundation is strong and some of it is not burnt up yet. Some of that would have stopped right there because nothing's wrong with the top. So the top would have just been up there, and then the part that's burning right there, that part would have came down. The top would have came down on that part. And then it would have, because the other side wouldn't have been affected by fire, then when that part fell right there, that part would have been affected and it would have just deteriorated, and it would have had to keep deteriorating, but nothing would have happened to the part that was not affected by fire. That's just natural. All of that was not affected by fire at the same time, which means that that some hindrance would have came to the complete fall of the building at one time like that. That's all you gotta do is use common sense, especially men. Men should know that. You live long enough to know that. You've seen enough stuff to know that. You've seen enough things in life as men to know that there's no way that a building that huge, a skyscraper, can fall that quickly in on itself just from fire on a couple floors. That's insulting your intelligence as a man. Ain't no way they can tell me that, because I know what fire does. I know what fire does, and fire does not blow up. Fire does not make fire when it affects a building or affect anything. It deteriorates it first, and that process, whether it's stuff inside the building, how the building's made, where it's cement on certain parts of the building or certain other material that's not on the opposite side of the wing of the floor, that's all going to affect it not falling evenly. It's not an old building, so it's a fairly new building, which means it had designs here, designs there. All the floors were not identical. They probably were not. And there were certain materials that were obviously not. No floor could have had all the same model. All floors couldn't have the same model and all the same material on the floors. No way. And even if it did, the buildup of all the debris would have still made a different effect on all the floor, each floor. Some might have just kind of build up and burn through and and melt through and then cause another effect. And because that wasn't there on the other wing of the part of the floor, on the left wing of the floor, for example, then that same effect is not going to happen right there on that left wing. So it's going to deteriorate maybe a little slower. You see what I'm saying? It's no way in the world that there would have been no hindrance. That's impossible, especially when you look at the floors. But if you look at demolition, and you look how a building comes down, people have heard this so much they got desensitized to it it's concerning 9/11. But if you look at demolition, excuse me, it comes straight down in less than a minute. It's the same thing. So how is it that 9/11 had Trade Center 1, 2, and 7 fall like demolition, but they got a different cause and effect situation for each of for the buildings? They got two different causes of effect, two different cause and effects of why Trade Center 1, 2, and 7 fell, but they have the same cause and effect of demolition buildings coming down. That's where the common sense come in. This is where you talk about real time and how real time actions affects things. It's no way that in real time that planes and fires and demolitions will all look the same. Say that again. There's no way with the reality of cause and effect that burning floors, planes hitting two buildings, and demolition all looking the same in real time, having different causes and three different causes in effect between Trade Center 1, 2, and 7 and demolitions. You got three different causes and effects right there. Something happens, and this is the result of why it happened. You got three of those situations. A plane hit it, and this is why it fell like that. A fire burnt this building, and this is why it felt like that. Demolition, bombs blowing up on floors, and this is why it fell. You got three situations like that, and they're all the same with no natural difference. It's all identical. There's no way. The cause and effects is too different. Fires and planes are two different, almost night and day difference. Demolition from fire, demolition from planes are almost night and day difference. So how can they all look totally identical with no natural unique fall for the buildings? Because a building that falls from fire is going to be uniquely different from buildings that fall from demolition and fall from planes. It's no way. Have you ever seen a building burn? That's my question to a lot of Americans. Have you ever, this is for Trade Center 7, because they say that fell by fire. Have you ever seen a building burn and eventually implode on itself? A lot of time, the structure and skeleton still remains. It don't always just go down. Sometimes the skeleton of the building is still there. And that's for buildings that's smaller than Trade Center 7 by a long shot. They still have the skeleton of their buildings. So how didn't Trade Center 7, being a skyscraper, didn't have the skeleton of its building, although they say it burned down from fires? If you go watch buildings burn naturally, and you will see how the deterioration process happens. It just doesn't just fall down. In the time frame, ask yourself the time frame of the fires too in Trade Center 7, with the planes falling. The planes crashing into Trade Center 1 and 2. Look at all of that being in sync at the same time. Trade Center 7 would have fell hours later from a fire. They all fell within the same time frame. Trade Center 7 would have fell way later from just fires. It would have fell way later. And they fell all in the same time frame. Planes hitting buildings versus fire burning a building. There's no way they're going to fall down in the same time frame. I would even say the building that's burning with fires would have fell 8 to 12 hours later. Even a day later. Yeah. In the same time frame? That's insulting your intelligence, man. That's insulting your intelligence, man. I'm going to be doing more about this in the future.